We were talking about heat transfer modes in the last class. You can call them like modes or mechanisms. So first mode which we discussed last time, that was conduction. The second mode is convection, and the third mode is radiation. Okay, we have already seen that this conduction is modeled by Fourier law. Its mathematical form is what? You can say that is Q dot equals minus Ka del T by del X. Okay. So if you try to represent it in the form of flux, which is generally represented by smaller q, that is basically Q dot over A, and then it would be minus K delta T by delta X, right? So generally these are the two forms which we use, and it depends on the requirement, it depends on the specification of the system, what form do you need. And this form is just one dimensional form. Okay, I'm sorry, what? That last thing? Okay, that is basically del T by del X. The last term is del T by del X. So this is minus Ka del T by del X, and then you have, in the second relationship, you have minus K del T by del X. You have any question?
Sir, why do we write negative K instead of positive?
Okay, so generally what you do is you would write del T equals T2 minus T1. Once heat flows from where to where? From higher temperature to the lower temperature. So in this case, T1 would be greater than T2. So this would make this term negative. So just to make it positive, you give a negative sign at the end. So this is how you represent it. So you just need to understand that this is one-dimensional conduction. One-dimensional conduction means you can only see delta X over there. You can't see del Y or del Z, any other term. By the way, in its true form, this is a three-dimensional relationship. Okay, but this is the most simplified form which I am going to show you. The other forms, you may be able to see that in your heat transfer course. Okay, so let's leave that this conduction discussion at this point, and let's move on to convection. I asked you a question in the last class. If you have, let's say, some tea or water inside this tub or in this cup, the heat transfer from one molecule, one particle to the other particle, there are so many particles, would that be from conduction or convection? That is from conduction. I explained that as a last note of my last class, that this conduction, why it is conduction? Because the fluid is static. Okay, why it is conduction? The fluid is static. So whenever you have a moving fluid over some surface, just like air breezing over, let's say, surface of water, surface of the sea, surface of the river, air moving around this building, right? Obviously that air would be trying to extract some heat out of this building because that is cold outside. So obviously you can say the temperature inside the building is slightly more than the temperature outside the building. So what you can see is, in these forms, you can say that heat transfer mechanism is through convection. Okay, and generally convection is a combination of two mechanisms: conduction at the molecular scale, which is basically in itself a microscopic process through the oscillation of molecules. Obviously the molecules would transfer energy to the other molecules by oscillating and collision. Okay, so convection, you can say it is a combination of conduction at a very small scale maybe at the molecular scale, plus the heat transfer due to the motion of the fluid, and that is known as advection. Heat transfer on a larger scale, if a large, you can say, set of molecules, or let's say a bulk of fluid, a bulk fluid is moving in some direction, so that is due to advection. Okay, and the law which governs this convection, that is known as Newton's law of cooling. And that law is basically Q dot, obviously that is due to convection, that is equal, sorry, this should not be there, HA Ts minus T infinity. And in this relationship, I assume that Ts is greater than T infinity. If Ts is less than T infinity, you would say that Q dot would be equal to HA T infinity minus Ts. So in this case, you can use these two forms depending on this inequality. Okay, so that is known as Newton's law of cooling. And in this case, H is known as convection coefficient. H is known as convection coefficient. Now, one very important thing to understand, and please remember the units. For temperature, you know what are the units. For area, again, you know what are the units. Q dot, you can say what are the units for Q dot. So this should be joules per second, or what? Watt. Okay. So if I ask you what would be the units of H, that would be what? The relationship would be Q dot over A Ts minus T infinity. So you can say that it would be watt meter square, and then what? So because this is the difference, remember this is the difference. So if you look at temperature difference on a Kelvin scale, or let's say the degree centigrade scale, it won't make any difference to its magnitude, isn't it? It's a difference, right? So for example, if it is Ts minus T infinity on the Kelvin scale, or let's say Ts minus T infinity on the degree centigrade scale, it won't make any difference to the magnitude of that, right? So delta T. So you can say that it is also represented as this thing. T infinity is the temperature outside. Generally, whenever you talk about this infinity sign, T infinity or rho infinity, or let's say P infinity, these temperatures are, or these properties are known as free stream conditions. Now what do you mean by free stream? The air moving independently outside in the environment, in the atmosphere. Okay, so this is basically a representation for any property which is there in the free stream in the air. Okay, and generally that temperature is taken as sometimes 20 degrees centigrade, sometimes 25 degrees centigrade. Okay, that watt, this is watt. No. Now this H is a flow property, it is not a fluid property. This H is not a fluid property, remember that. It does not depend on the fluid which you are considering for convection. It depends on so many factors. It depends on temperature, it depends on surface, it depends on the fluid itself, it depends on the velocity of the fluid, right? And generally this H is experimentally determined. Experimentally determined. So most of the times, if you listen to somebody and he or she says that I am a PhD in heat transfer and I have done something on convection, so most of the time you would find that his or her study would be concentrated on determining H in a certain kind of heat transfer phenomena. Okay, so this is so important, you can say, and it is so hectic to find that out that it requires a lot of effort. So generally it is determined experimentally. Okay, so this thing you should keep in your mind, that this is not a fluid property, this is a flow property, right?
Can you explain what the flow property?
Now flow property means that it depends on the whole flow phenomena. I mean, it depends on velocity, it depends on temperature, it depends on the surface, it depends on the liquid or gas itself, right? There are so many things which are there inside a flow phenomena, but it is not a fluid property. If I say this is a fluid property only, it means it is just a material property. It is not, right? For the same air, let's say if the air is moving at velocity 10 meter per second, you would have a higher h. If the air is moving with, let's say, 2 meter per second, you would have a smaller h. Just like that. For example, if it's hot outside in summer, you go outside, what do? You try to increase the convection by what? By switching that fan on, right? By blowing on your chest. I mean, you try to do these kind of things. What are you trying to do? Basically, you are trying to enhance the fluid velocity. Okay, and by that enhancement in the fluid velocity, you try to do what? You are trying to increase h. Okay. So let's talk about the other mechanism. That mechanism is radiation. So radiation is the only medium which does not require any physical, radiation is the only mechanism which does not require any physical medium to transfer heat. Any physical medium for heat transfer. Okay, so you can say that any body which is there in the universe, like your own body, or let's say those benches, anything you can talk of, everything emit radiation, everything absorbs radiation, those radiations which you also call like electromagnetic, something like that, right? So every body emits radiation, absorbs radiation, and also it can transmit the radiation through it, right? Now, for example, these are the three things which can happen with the electromagnetic waves, and you can say its interaction with the body. Now, the thing is, how do we mathematically represent it? I would use the word mathematical model. It means mathematical description. Okay.
So when the convection or the conduction is taking place, then the radiation would also be taking place simultaneously.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes we just need to decide which phenomena is more dominant and which is less dominant.
But radiation will be there.
And just to reduce the mathematical complexity, we can disregard few. Like for example, if convection is the major, you can say dominant phenomena in some heat transfer mechanism or some heat transfer phenomena, you can disregard radiation. Most of the time we do that, right? And that basically neglection or negation for some heat transfer mechanism depends on the Q dot, what Q dot it is providing to you. Okay, so mathematical model is basically represented by Stephen Boltzmann law. The Stephen Boltzmann law says that this Q dot, and I would just put radiation in the subscript, that is basically epsilon sigma area, and this TB, by the way, this TB is the surface of the body. I mean, this B is for body. Okay, and remember that in all of the rest of those mechanisms, which is the conduction or convection, you may use temperature in degree centigrade or in Kelvin, no problem at all. But this is the one where you can only use this in Kelvin scale. This relationship only holds true for Kelvin scale. Okay, if you use degree centigrade over there, that would be wrong. Remember that. Don't make that mistake. Okay, so This is only true for Kelvin scale. And this is known as Stefan Boltzmann constant. This sigma Stefan Boltzmann constant, and its value is 5.67 into 10 raised to power minus 8 watt over per meter square k raised to power 4. I hope you can understand how you come up with this one. Okay, watt per meter square, then Kelvin raised to power 4. Why? Because this is Kelvin raised to power 4.
So is this constant universally applicable here?
Yeah.
Constant like I said, it depends upon the material. Or
No, this Stefan Boltzmann law, constant has this fixed value.
fixed value for
Yeah.
everything.
Right? And this is something which is known as emissivity. This epsilon thing, this is known as emissivity, and this emissivity depends on the material. This emissivity depends on the material. Sorry? No, this has no units, but its values should be from 0 to 1. Its values should be from 0 to 1. And for ideal case, this emissivity would be getting a value of 1.
So it's
Right.
kind of a ratio.
Sorry?
It's like equal ratio of these.
Not ratio, but you can say that it is just a comparison between a real body and an ideal body. And generally that ideal body is something which is known as black body. Right? So you can say that ideal body is a black body. You might have heard about it in your elementary courses. So that ideal body is known as the black body, which is having emissivity equals 1. Okay, and if you say that it is 0.1, it is just showing you a comparison between the emissivity properties of two bodies, right? And you can take one body as the standard one, which is the black body, and you just compare the other property in comparison to it. Okay. Okay. Any question?
Material property.
Sorry.
So the energy will be the material property.
Yeah.
A would be the area.
A would be the area. And remember that if you just talk about heat transfer flux, this is heat transfer rate. If you say heat transfer flux, you just need to divide this Q dot by A. Okay.
Sir, we had talking about an ideal black body. So
Okay.
it can be of any material. But if we take a body, a real body that is of the same material, so will it have emissivity equal to?
That is of the same material. I mean, obviously, the material means what kind of surface you have. What is the color of the surface, right? Sometimes you try to polish it with black color. You try to achieve that property, right? So you can say not more appropriately, this is material or body. Sometimes it is the color which is affecting those electromagnetic radiations and all that. Okay. So any other thing?
Sir, what if we use same material but polish with a different color, so that the emissivity will be same?
No, it would be different. I mean, obviously it would be dependent on the material, whether you are talking about solid or fluid or gas, whatever you are talking about. And then it depends on the outer surface. What kind of color do you have, right? So more appropriately, you can say that material / body or surface. So let's talk about now, till this point we have been talking about introduction to the terminology which we are going to use in this subject. Okay. Now we have covered most of the content related to the terminologies. Now let's talk about the practical aspect, how we are going to apply the whole knowledge which we have gained till this point to the systems, okay, to the engineering systems. So before that, I would also give you the introduction to first law of thermodynamics, okay, and then we would see how we can apply it on few systems. So we are going to talk about energy balance of closed systems. Now, what do you mean by closed systems? Come on, what do you mean by closed systems? You talk about control mass. Okay, so you talk about control mass. No mass is allowed to enter or leave the body, leave the system. Mass remains fixed. So, first law of thermodynamics says energy remains conserved. Okay, energy remains conserved. And remember one thing, when we talk about control mass, it means we may be talking about some kind of heat interaction. Like for example, if there is a jar, inside it you have gas, and that jar is having some contact with a hotter plate, for example. Okay, then you would see that because of the temperature difference between the gas and that hotter plate, heat would start flowing from what? From the plate to the gas. And then as a result, some kind of energy content of the gas would be changed. Isn't it? Some kind of energy content from the gas, of the gas would be changed. Now, there are few interesting points about the experiment of the Joule. But before that, let me go back to the definition where we defined work. Now, do you remember that once we defined work, we have this PV diagram, and I talked about the quasi-equilibrium process. I said that these are the two states, 1 and 2, and this process goes like this. Right, and this is the area under this curve which defines work. That's what we talked about. You remember that? Yeah. Now let's talk about something else. If I say that these points, now this point is what? All of these points have been gone through by the system, isn't it? If I talk about this point, so I just consider it as if it is a quasi-equilibrium point, and then all of those points have been gone through by the system, isn't it? Yeah. Now if I say that this curve is defining a process, this curve is defining a process the system has undergone. Now, so I would say that this curve is kind of defining a process. Now if I go from this equilibrium state to this equilibrium state by some other process, let's say I say that this system has gone from this to this state through some other process which is shown by this yellow line. Now what would you say? That the work done would be different from the previous one? Yes, sir. Do you understand that? Why? Because the area under the curve has increased. Now it means that this work done depends on the process, not the end states only. Remember, this is very important to understand. I mean, we are going to use this concept later on. So remember that work done on the system depends on the process, and that curve was defined by what? PV raised to power n equals constant, right? So that curve is basically PV raised to power n equals constant, where that constant and n depends on the empirical curve fitting. I told you that. So now there is a very interesting point about Joule's experiment. This Joule was a scientist who tried to define few things related to this first law of thermodynamics and some other laws of thermodynamics. So Joule's experiment says that if you have no heat interaction between with the system, if you have no interaction with the system, you are going through an adiabatic process. So let me define this adiabatic process. Adiabatic process is that process where you do not have no heat transfer. No heat transfer involves. So this is known as adiabatic process. Joule's experiment, very interesting. He said that if you have any adiabatic process let me write it down more traditionally. The value of the net work done by or on a closed system between two given states I hope you understand what do I mean by states. The points which I mark by 1 and 2. Okay, we have talked about that in detail. By two given states depends solely on the end states and not on the details of the adiabatic process. Now, do you understand that? So the point is, it does not matter which path do you follow to go from state 1 to state 2. Whether you go like this, like this, like this, does not matter. Okay? The only thing matters is end states, right? So
we can say that in adiabatic process we can ignore the process to we go from state 1 to
yes,
state 2.
that's what it means. You cannot ignore, by the way. It has no value. Which process does it follow? Which path does it follow? Right?
It comes to the same value.
Basically the work done, it comes out to be the same. Okay. Now the point is, done? Okay. How do you mathematically describe this law? Mathematical description of this law is E2 minus E1, energy content at level 1, energy content at level 2, and by the way, that energy content at level 1 and level 2, this is a combination of what? Remember that. And all of these describe properties. All of these describe properties. So that is something which is equal to the energy difference, the heat transfer from the system or to the system minus work done by the system or on the system. Okay, this is the mathematical description. So you can say that energy, basically, this is a generic representation of first law of thermodynamics. Remember that. This is a generic representation of first law of thermodynamics. By the way, this is again a simpler form, I would say. This is again a simpler form. What is the actual form? I may talk about that, but later on, so that it does not cause any kind of confusion at your end. But remember that if you have some system, you have notice some change in its energy content, may it be kinetic energy or let's say potential energy or some other internal energy. So that is due to what? Due to the heat interaction of the system with the surrounding and the work done by the system on the surrounding or on the system by the surrounding, right? And you can just see that this thing, obviously this I am taking it as positive Q and this is taken as negative Q. So please remember the sign conventions. Don't confuse it. I have explicitly wrote down those sign conventions which we are going to follow. So this is the mathematical description of first law of thermodynamics. Remember that. Now if we talk about adiabatic process, which of the term would be gone? I mean, this heat would be gone for what kind of processes? Adiabatic processes. So for Joule's experiment, where we just talk about adiabatic process, what would be form of this law? That would be equal to whatever the energy content is changed, that is due to what? The work done on the system or by the system. Okay, remember that. Do you have any question? Now this is a negative sign. This is there in the mathematical description. Now you need to put minus of let's say 2 joule if the work is done by the surrounding on the system, right? So if it is positive, so that negative sign would be there. Just remember this thing, just to avoid any confusion, just remember this thing. Take it in this mathematical form. If the work is done on the system, just put another negative sign with the magnitude. If the work is done by the system, it would be going straight away, right? Sorry? No, it is just to remain consistent. Like for example, if you say this is minus W, now what does that mean? This positive Q, what does that describe? That the heat or energy is being given to the system. What does that minus describe? Work done on the system. So in both the cases, energy is given to the system. Just to stay consistent with these conventions, you use a positive sign with Q and you use a negative sign with W. Okay, there is no highly logical stuff behind that. Just to remain consistent with the sign conventions. That's why you use it. You have some question, I think.
What experiment did Joule really conduct to show that all processes?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. You can just go back, check some YouTube video or something like that. If you want me to show it to you, I would also refer some material to you. No problem.
So if a body is adiabatically compressing the system, so let's say we have a gas in a container, so we are, then how will we compress that gas adiabatically? Will we apply force on it? So we cannot give or take heat from it. So how will we adiabatically compress it? If we are expanding it.
Yeah, it is adiabatically compression. It is adiabatic expansion. Yeah. I mean, is there any kind of heat transfer? Now, adiabatic depends on heat transfer. And remember one thing, that you cannot actually measure that energy content. That you put sensors and they would be giving you the exact values with let's say 4 or 5 significant figures. Not at all. Right? But this is something which is also coming from your intuitive sense as well. Just think of it. You are giving some kind of energy to the system. Obviously, there are 3 ways. Okay, let me talk about the actual form of the energy, just to answer your question. Actual form of energy is, if the energy is coming into the system, obviously that energy would be going out of the system. And then there would be some energy content which may be stored in the system. Then there may be some energy content within the system which can be changed from one form to the other. For example, you have installed a heater inside that system. So there would be a 4th term related to energy, which is the generation term. Do you understand my point? So essentially there are four kinds of processes which are going on with respect to the energy, and that energy is that it is coming in, it is going out, it is being generated inside, or it is being stored inside it. So essentially if you look at the real form of law of conservation of energy, which is the first law of thermodynamics, you can say that the energy coming in plus the energy generated, these are the two which are the positive quantities. Then the energy, it would be equal to energy stored plus energy going out. This is something which is the real form. But to, you can say, this kind of expression we use in heat transfer. Why do we use that in heat transfer? Because we are mainly concerned with the mechanisms by which that energy is transferred. In thermodynamics, we are not very much concerned about the mechanism by which that energy is transferred. We are just talking about most of the time end states. Right? Most of the time we would be dealing with work interaction between the system and the surrounding. Work interaction. And if some heat is involved, obviously we can go into that as well.
Sir, in another case, sir, if the gas has to expand adiabatically, so it will be very circumstances that the gas uses its internal energy to do work on the piston and to expand. So in that case, will we take work as positive or negative?
Now, are you trying to compress the system?
So we gas is just expanding.
Gas itself is expanding.
So without
Now, let me tell you, you need to define first what is the system. Is it the gas only? Or do you include that piston in that system? Yes, exactly. That's the difference, what I talked about in the very first class, that you need to draw the free body diagram. You need to demark your system by that dashed line first. Now, what do you do in statics? Are you doing that statics course in this semester? So, what's the first thing you do? You draw the free body diagram, right? So, the same thing you do in thermodynamics by doing what? You try to isolate the system from its surroundings by what? By drawing out that control surface, that dashed line outside that. Now, do you consider any kind of internal force inside in the free body diagram? Internal force. Now, I mean, if you just consider this whole body as your system, now do you consider what kind of forces are there in those joints? Not at all. Do you consider any kind of force inside that, let's say, a cardiac system or nervous system? Not at all. You won't consider that. What you would be considering is that if somebody is pushing me or pulling me, or there is a weight which is being applied as a force because I am present in the gravitational field, right? So that is something which is external. So it depends on the system. Whatever you are talking about, if the expansion of the gas is there and you are just marking that gas as your system, so it means system is doing work on the piston. Do you understand that? Now, for example, if you include piston in the system as well, now the force applied by the gas on the piston, that would be something which is internal. So you don't have to consider that. Do you understand my point? So in that case, whenever you are going to consider, as far as that structural mechanics is concerned, whenever you are going to talk about the internal forces, you jump into mechanics of materials. That's the difference between statics and mechanics of materials. Now, in the same case, if you try to do that kind of distinguishing things in heat transfer or thermofluids, you also try to go in that direction. You are talking about the internal mechanisms, how that energy is produced, how that is converted. So that is something which is being done in heat transfer. Okay. So I hope you understand my point.
Sir, by the last opinion, do you mean that we can calculate work through properties which define two different?
Yes, exactly.
So,
For adiabatic process. For adiabatic process, that work is what? This is the difference between the values of property of one property at two states. This is E2 minus E1.
so we do not need to calculate the index interior.
No, you don't have to.
So in that case, the work does not depend on the process.
Not on the process. Right? Okay, any other thing?
So the graph which you first draw energy when you were in the energy balance of the closed system,
Okay.
and so you draw the graph of you said that the area to the graph or the work done.
Okay.
Yes. So sir, this was a specific case.
No, this was a specific, this can be a case for what kind of process? Just by just looking at this plot, what do you say? That is it an adiabatic process or it is something else? It is something else.
It is not a universal.
Exactly. There is no heat interaction, sorry, there is some kind of heat interaction in this kind of process. Why? Because the work done is dependent on the path followed by the system. It does not depend only on the states. Okay. Now, gentlemen, just look at this figure, just to answer your question, because that was my next slide, that's why I went into that detail. So, just look at that. I mean, if you look at this gas only as your system, this gas inside that container. Now, just see that this is the control surface and this is isolating what? Only the gas region from the surrounding. Do you understand that? Now, this is basically some kind of copper plate which is getting electrical energy from this, right, somehow or the other. And obviously, if that gas is making some kind of physical connection with this copper plate, obviously it would be getting some kind of energy out of it, isn't it? Because the copper plate would be hotter than the gas, so some heat transfer would be observed. Now the point is, if you look at this gas as a system, is there any kind of work performed on this gas by this copper plate? Work is not performed, but there is some kind of heat transfer. There is no work done on the system by the surrounding, by the copper plate, or let's say by that tank on the gas. But what was the point? That you are trying to give some kind of energy or heat from the copper plate to the gas. Now, this is basically representation of energy or heat going inside the gas. Now, if I include this copper plate in my system, now what kind of energy interaction this system has with its surroundings? Would you have this kind of energy interaction? Not at all. Why? Because this is now inside the system. The energy interaction of this system with the surrounding is through these wires. This is now electrical energy which is being given to the system. Now whatever is going in, this does not matter. Why? Because it is inside the system, right? So this is something which you need to understand. This is something which you do a lot of practice about, that you need to demark the system, you need to isolate it from the surroundings, and once you isolate it with this from the surroundings, then you would be able to describe what kind of energy or work interaction it has with its surroundings, right? Now, just let me go for this. If this is the whole system, what kind of energy interaction does it have with the surroundings? Nothing. No work is being done on the system or by the system. No energy interaction or heat interaction is there between the system and the surrounding. Now, do you understand that? So, just think of it as if you are drawing a free body diagram in your mechanics course. Okay? So, try to demark it. I would repeat, try to demark the body through that control surface, that dashed line. Try to isolate it and then see what kind of interaction it is making with the surrounding. Is it doing some kind of work? Is it getting some kind of energy from the surroundings? Is work done on the system by the surrounding, or let's say other way around? So you need to think in these terms. Okay? So any question?
But in the second case, is work done also 0 cent?
Is work done?
Also 0 in
Yes, obviously. It is, no, work done is, I think we need to describe that electrical energy in yes. Yes, you can say that the work done would be equal to what? That power transmitted to the system, right? So that power is what that is, VI kind of thing. So you can take that, right? So there are so many cases, you just need to distinguish whether it's change in kinetic energy, whether it's a change in potential energy, is it a change in internal energy? There are just 5 terms: kinetic, potential and internal energies, and then you need to see whether there is some kind of heat interaction or there is some kind of work involved. Those are the 5 terms which you need to take care. Okay.
How did you conclude in the first case when the work done was zero?
Work done was 0.
In the first case where W is equal to 0, how did you conclude that?
Okay. You tell me, because we have gone through this discussion before.
Right, so like, that is happy to be the expansion or the volume change.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is there any kind of generalized displacement inside this? Is there some kind of generalized force? The only way it interacts with its surroundings is through what? This copper plate. That's it. Right? So, let me solve this one example so that we can see what is the real application. Because I told you that we are going to apply these concepts which we have been talking, and this is the first example. This is about cooling a gas in a piston cylinder arrangement. So you can say 4/10 kilogram of a certain gas. Obviously, I hope you understand what does that mean. 4/10. It's 0.4. It's 0.4. Okay. Of a certain gas is contained within a piston cylinder assembly. The gas undergoes a process for which the pressure volume relationship is given. And if that relationship is given to you, what does that mean? Is it an adiabatic process? It does not look like. It doesn't look like. Why? Because if I just change that exponent, or let's say that constant, it would give me some other process. Okay. Right. The initial pressure is 3 bar. I hope you understand those units. The initial volume is 0.1 meter cube and the final volume is 0.2 meter cube. So you can say that it is giving you what? It is giving you V1. I would say this is P1 because this is the initial, and then initial pressure and initial volume, and this is V2. The change in specific internal energy of the gas, if you have this smaller u, what does that mean? Just look at the units and tell me. This is specific internal energy. Internal energy per unit mass, that is known as specific internal energy. That's why, just look at the units, kilojoule per kg. So, the change in specific internal energy of the gas in this process is smaller u2 minus u1 equals minus 55 kilojoule per kg. There are no significant changes in kinetic energy or potential energy. Okay, there are no significant changes in kinetic energy or potential energy. So just think of that. E2 minus E1 equals Q minus W. That E2 minus E1 is what? It's a summation of delta KE, delta PE and delta U. So you can just think of in your head that this delta KE and delta PE, they are gone, right? So determine the net heat transfer for this process in kilojoule. And that's what I told you. By just looking at the process, by just looking at the graph, you can say that is it going to be an adiabatic process or not? No, it's not. And obviously the last statement tells you that it is not, and you need to define that heat, amount of heat transferred during that process. So the point is, how do you solve it? I mean, I tried to solve this kind of problem earlier as well.
So how can we tell by looking at the graph that it is adiabatic?
Oh, this is PV raised to power 1.5 equals constant. How does that relationship come? Experimentally determined, yes. If I draw another curve, for example, if I change these signs, if I say that process has gone from here to here, would that relationship be changed? You would have some other exponent, you would have some other constant. So what does that mean? From Joule's experiment, he told you that from an adiabatic process, what was the characteristic? That work done on the system or by the system does not depend on process. It only depends on end state. So although these end states remain the same, but you have some other process. And obviously it would have add this much amount of work in the system or out of the system.
What is the graph?
So is it an adiabatic process?
Sir, if the relation is VD equals to constant, then it will be an adiabatic process.
PV equals, so it would just describe this line.
It will be an adiabatic.
Why?
Because you can't change the gamma part.
No, still I can change. If I make it from 1 to 1.2, what does that mean? What do you say then? I mean, it's the same thing, right? So if the process looks like as if it is affecting work, it is not an adiabatic process. Remember that. Okay, if it is affecting, it is not affecting, it means it's an adiabatic process.
Sir, can you show the one example of the graph of an adiabatic process?
Now we will talk about that. We will talk about that. Let me solve these problems first, and then we would move on. I would take that question. So we were talking about that example. Now, what was the relationship? That was PV raised to power 1.5 equals constant. So remember, you need to define in your book. You might have solved few examples, and there is a certain methodology following in those books. And I think it's always good to remain with whatever the content they have covered, and what in whatever methodology they have gone through it. Now the point is, they might have described. First of all, you try to draw the schematic where you demark your system, just like the free body diagram in your statics course. Then you do what? You try to distinguish what kind of given data is there. Then you try to understand what is unknown inside that statement. Okay. So what was to be found out is the net heat transfer in the process. That we need to find out. Net heat transfer in the process. And if you need to find that out, you know that there is some work done on the system or by the system which is being described by this process. And obviously it has told you that some energy content, some part of energy content, you can take it as 0. There is no change in kinetic and potential energy. So obviously it is a straightaway application of first law of thermodynamics. So that is Q minus W. Okay. So if you look at this content, that is delta KE plus delta PE plus delta U, and that is basically Q minus. These two terms are gone. You can disregard, and then this is something which is given in terms of U2 minus U1, and obviously if you multiply mass with it, you would come up with delta U, right? And what about that Q? That is to be found out. And what about that W? How we can find that out? Obviously we need to integrate this. We have a process, and we can find out work by integrating what? If you remember, that was the relationship. And what is pressure? What was V1? I think that value is 0.1, and the final volume is 0.2. So that's how you can define work. Just plug in that value over there, find out Q. Okay. So I just need to. So any question? Any question about this? This P. Now from this expression, I know that if I integrate pressure over volume, then I would be able to define work. Right? And the limits are from V1 to V2. Now how can you define this pressure in terms of volume? If you look at this expression, that is something which is constant over V raised to power 1.5, that is something which is pressure. So if I describe pressure in terms of volume like this and integrate it from V1 to V2, I would be able to quantify work. Is that done? Okay. Sorry? That constant value may be given to you. No problem at all. Right? I was just talking about the methodology.
Your delta U is equal to M into U2 minus U1.
Okay.
So, what is that?
What does that mean? So what is smaller u? You tell me. What is smaller u? You don't know? Then what are you there for? Any other question? So let's talk about another example. I would solve two more examples. Now just look at this system. This is quite interesting. And let me can you read that statement, last one? Can you read that? Is it visible to you? Okay. So air is contained in a vertical piston cylinder assembly. Most of the time we would be dealing with those systems, piston cylinder assembly, right? Fitted with an electrical resistor inside it. You can see there is an electrical resistor inside it. Just remember that energy generation term which I was talking about earlier. So the atmosphere exerts a pressure of 14.7 pound force per inch square. And obviously that atmospheric pressure is there on the piston. Okay. On the top of the piston, which has a mass of 100 pounds and a face area of 1 feet square. Okay. Electric current passes through the resistor and the volume of the air slowly increases by 1.6 feet cube. Slowly increases. Now what does that mean? Slowly increases. I would talk about that. While its pressure remains constant. Remember that. It is slowly increasing. So that's why we can just say its pressure remains almost constant. It does not go a huge change, undergo a huge change. The mass of the air is 0.6 pounds and its specific internal energy increases by 18 BTU per pound. Okay, now everything is being given to you. The air and piston are at rest initially and finally. Now these are the two equilibrium states. You see? Initially it is at rest and then after it was disturbed, it goes to the other equilibrium point. The piston cylinder material is a ceramic composite and thus a good insulator. Now what does that mean? It is an adiabatic state. Do you understand that? Now it has itself, it is giving you that thing that you are trying to describe that property as if there is no heat interaction of the system and surrounding. Friction between the piston and cylinder wall can be ignored. Obviously there would be some kind of heat transfer due to that friction, so you are also disregarding it. You maintain a certain tolerance amount, certain spacing between those two things. So you can just say that somehow or the other you have maintained zero friction. And the local acceleration of gravity is 32 feet per second square. Determine the heat transfer from the resistor to the air in BTU for a system consisting of the air alone. Now this is something which again comes to that question. How do you demark your system? Air alone in the first case and then air and the piston. Now you need to see the heat transfer from the resistor to the air. Now what's the difference? The difference is you would be applying that first law of thermodynamics. Just you do sigma f equals 0 thing on, let's say, on a free body diagram. In case of statics, you try to establish or you try to implement that first law of thermodynamics on the system. In the first case, it is just the air, just like this one. Just see, this is the air and you can see that control surface. Can you see it? Now if you look at that, just think of it. I mean, if you try to understand air as a system, would there be any kind of, can you measure its kinetic energy or potential energy? You would be trying to incorporate all the energy terms into one thing, which is what? Internal energy. Okay. And then if you look at that air, it has some kind of work interaction with this piston, isn't it? That piston is exerting some kind of pressure on the gas. So it has basically some contact with the piston, so it means some work interaction is there between the piston and the gas. then if you look at this electrical resistor, obviously that electrical resistor would be giving what kind of heat to the system. So that's how you can distinguish how that system, which is demarked by a dashed line, a control surface, has its work interaction and energy interaction with its surroundings. Do you understand that? Now,
The piston will be a surrounding, sir.
yes, obviously piston would be a surrounding.
There is a heat transfer. Piston is transferring heat to the
Piston is
So the piston is coil, sir.
okay.
So it-
Now this is resistor. This is not piston.
resistor, sir, it's generating heat.
Yes,
So there will be a heat transfer.
yes, that's what I talked about.
Sir, will be an acetone or adiabatic?
There would be heat transfer in what?
So heat transfer to the system.
No. Heat transfer to the system, and then, yes, that's a good question. But this insulation outside, we are talking about this insulation. I mean, if you have this temperature at T air, and if you have this temperature at T infinity, would there be any kind of heat transfer from air to air? That's what that insulation means. That coil is a part of.
The coil and piston are both a part of the surrounding.
Coil and piston, basically that resistor is surrounding. That you just take air as what? System. So every other thing would be surrounding.
Including the coil and
Do you understand that? Now the point is, it is not an adiabatic process. Why? Because we are going to determine heat transfer. Do you understand that? So I'm sorry for that. I might have used adiabatic for this thing. Oh, I'm sorry for that. It is just about insulation stuff with regards to the convection outside the system, or let's say through the radiation. You can just disregard it. Okay. I'm sorry for using that word. That is not adiabatic. Okay. Any other thing? Okay. So let's move on and try to solve it. Just write down first law of thermodynamics in its mathematical form first. That first law of thermodynamics says that we have delta KE plus delta PE, and in this case system is air only. Air only. And then we have delta U equals Q minus, sorry, this is not dot, Q minus W. Do you understand that? So the point is, we need to define this. This is something to be found out. And this is something which is given to you. That was given. Okay. So we do not consider any kind of these quantities. Why? Because we can't really measure it, kinetic, because it's a gas. We can incorporate all the changes into internal energy. And then this is given to you. This is to be found out. Work. Because all the pressure and volume related information is given to us. So if we try to find out that work, what is that? Right? And just look at one of the statements. What does that describe? Yes. Volume of the air slowly increases by this much, and while its pressure remains constant. Now what does that mean? If I just try to draw it on PV diagram, pressure remains, and what is V1 minus V2? 1.6 feet cube, isn't it? So 1.6 feet cube. So I can say straight away, because it's a constant, I can say this is equal to P into V2 minus. Can I say that? Very simple. Then this V2 minus V1 is given to you. Now this has become unknown. Now you see, you jump onto the next step and there is another unknown waiting for you. How that unknown can be found out? By doing some kind of, by establishing some kind of mechanical equilibrium. So let's move on to that, and we would found out that pressure by establishing mechanical equilibrium on that system. Okay. If you look at that gas, just consider this as a control surface. This is my control surface. Control surface. You have piston over there, and then you have some kind of P atmosphere over there as well. Now if you try to draw the free body diagram of this system, it is applying some kind of force on this piston. This is something which is the work interaction from the system to the surrounding. Then it is also bearing the pressure due to the weight of the piston and the atmospheric pressure, right? So you can say that it is something which is the pressure of the air into that area, whatever that area is, I mean the area of the piston. Then it is also bearing what? Weight of the piston, and which is what? P atmosphere. I mean, this is how you establish equilibrium, mechanical equilibrium. You are talking about balance of forces on the system. So if you look at that in this way, you would be able to find out this pressure, right? Now there is one reading assignment for you guys in that. There is one trick about the units. So let me talk about that. Once you convert this thing into these British engineering unit systems, you would divide something. Let's say you would be talking about pound mass, obviously. Then you would be multiplying it with G, which is feet per second square. And finally, because there is solution given in your book, you would see that it is being divided by 32.2 pound feet per second square. Now just see, it is not simply pound mass into feet into second square. It is not simply like that. What you have to do is you need to divide it by 32.2 pound into feet divided by second square, right? So please go back and check this unit conversion. This is your reading assignment. Reading assignment where you can convert that mg into like that, right? So please go back, check that unit conversion, because these things you might have already done in your elementary physics courses. That is why I am just bringing those points into your notice. Go back and do this stuff and keep that in your mind, that once you are dealing with British engineering systems, what are the changes from the conventional SI units. I think this is pound force. I don't think so. There is pound mass, then there is pound force.
So, but since the pounds are only the difference between both of them.
Okay. So thanks for that correction. We need to describe that pressure into force, so that is why we just multiplied. So this is kind of reading assignment. Please do that. If you still have confusion, I can discuss that in the class, right? Please let me know what is the confusion, and then I would be trying to try to answer that. But go back and check that conversion. Okay. So that's how you can find out pressure. That's how you can find out pressure. Plug that pressure back into this equation, find out work, and then find out Q. Okay? Right. So this is again quite interesting stuff, because I told you that looking at first law of thermodynamics it is quite intuitive. I mean, you can see that if some energy is being given to the system, whether it is stored or it would be going outside the system. Okay. Now let me spell out that statement. during steady state operation. Now this is very important. How do you mathematically describe these words? Steady state process, what does that mean? Exactly, that there is no change in some of the property with respect to time. So that's how you translate English into mathematics, right? So there is no change in some of the properties with respect to time. So this is again important. Now see, so you can say sum d by dt is equal to 0. Then a gearbox receives 60 kilowatt through the input shaft. Just see, this is a gearbox. 60 kilowatt power is being given to that first gear and delivers power through the output shaft. It is connected with, it is meshed with another gear, and then this smaller gear, it basically transmits this amount of work or power to the surrounding. Okay. Now for the gearbox as the system, now just see, you have demarked that gearbox. Always remember, you need to demark the system, just like you draw the free body diagram. Okay. The rate of energy transfer by convection is like this one. This is what law it is? Newton's law of cooling, where H is given to you, area is given to you, that is the outer surface area. Obviously you need to use that over there. TB is given to you, is the temperature at the outer surface, which is the body temperature. TF is given to you, right? TF means T fluid outside the system. For the gearbox, evaluate the heat transfer rate. Evaluate the heat transfer rate and the power delivered through the output shaft. Now just see that you have a gearbox, and just keep in your mind that you are trying to apply what? First law of thermodynamics. Now first law of thermodynamics again, this is delta KE plus delta PE plus delta U equals Q minus W. Now is that gearbox moving?
No.
Not at all. As a system it is not moving. Are you trying to elevate it?
No.
What about that?
Only generator.
Come on. What about that? If we are talking about, okay. Now, what we need to do is, we do not need to look at the first law of thermodynamics in this form. What you need to look at, now let me show you another form of this process. We have seen that this is delta E was equal to Q plus W. Now you see, this relationship is in its form, in its magnitude form. This relationship also holds true for their rates. Remember that. This is another form. Do you understand what I have talked about? No, last man. I think your name is Arslan. Yes. So, what is that law? My point is, because that first law of thermodynamics holds also true in its rate form, time derivative form. So let me write down that relationship over there, and then that relationship was what? dE by dt equals what? Q dot minus W dot. By the way, this is dQ by dt and dW by dt. Now, because we are talking about steady state, in steady state, properties remain unchanged with respect to time. Now, which of these three terms is the property? Now just try to apply that concept which we have already covered, that which one of these three terms is a property? Energy. Energy is a property, right? So this is going to be 0 because we are talking about steady state processes. So you can say we have Q dot minus W dot equals 0, right? Now what would be that Q dot? I mean, what kind of heat interaction does that gearbox have with the surrounding? That was given to you. I mean, just look at the statement. That statement says some kind of convection. Some kind of convection is there. Now, if some kind of convection is there, I mean, you can find out Q dot by putting it all the variables into it. You know H, you know A, you know TB, you know TF, right? And then, if you know that, just look at that. Work done or power transmitted to the system, and obviously there was some power which is also transmitted by the system to the surrounding by the second shaft, right? So what does that mean? That I mean it should also have been W2 minus this W2. I am taking it as positive. Why? Because this is something which is done by the system, transmitted by the system. This is what? Transmitted to the system. So now this is known to you. This is known to you. Can you find out this one? Do you understand that? So that's how you can apply those concepts. You can translate that English into mathematics. You can draw your schematics based on that statement, and then you can derive certain conclusions out of it. And one very interesting point could be, if I say that you also need to consider the radiations emitted by this gearbox, then what would be Q dot?
Sir, it would be the plus the radiation.
Yes, obviously then Q dot would be what? Then this would be the total heat transmitted out of the system. And then in that case, would your W2 be increased or decreased? It would obviously be decreased. Why? Because some part of energy is also going into the atmosphere by that radiation as well. Okay?
So we are ignoring radiation. We are taking the dominant factor. That is
Yes, but this is just a, you can say, a side note. I mean, if you are an engineer, remember that there is one very important point which basically generally engineers lack most of the time, and that is about you know that there is a mathematical equation, you have to plug your numbers into it, no problem at all, and then you would finally come up with a number, no problem at all. But as an engineer, this is a very important skill to develop in yourself, that you should be able to interpret the answer. You should be able to see whether this answer is correct or not by just looking at the number. I mean, for example, if someone is saying that heat is being lost, right? And for example, you say that the heat is being lost from the system and the temperature is going up. Is it possible?
no.
So this is just, you can say, one case where if heat is being lost from the system and you are getting your temperature greater than the previous case, it means there is something wrong with your solution methodology. So you need to revisit your strategy. Okay? So don't just leave your work after getting a number. Just try to analyze it, whether it is possible to have this number or not. Do you understand my point? So this is a very important skill, and try to see that. For example, just I gave you one case. For example, if you add radiation into it, what would happen? Right? So any other question? No question? Okay. I just left one part. I think I skipped this, the second part of that question, where we talked about the air and piston. We talked about that. So what do you say about it? I'm sorry for leaving that part, but in the first case we have that air alone, and then in the second case we have the air and the piston. Now what do you say about that? Now just consider that your system is composed of two parts. Piston, which is interacting with the atmosphere, that is the piston side, and then there is an air side which is interacting with the heater. So you can say that energy contents are there, and it is composed of two parts, just energy from the air and energy from the piston. Right? This is something which is the total energy of the system, energy of the air and energy of the piston. And then you have what? Q dot minus W. Q dot minus W. Now, if you look at that energy from energy content of the air, would there be any kind of kinetic energy for the air? Would you consider any kind of potential energy? Generally, we do not consider. We would incorporate all the things into. So, you would consider everything into internal energy of the air. And then just look at the second side. Would there be any kind of kinetic energy for the piston? It is very slowly moving. I mean, velocity is what? You can neglect that velocity. And what about that change in position? That has to be taken care of. That has to be taken care of. Right? Sorry?
So the potential energy is
Because obviously potential energy of the piston is changing, right? And it does not matter how slowly it moves, still there would be some significant change in its potential energy. And then just look at the internal energy of the piston. Obviously for those kind of systems, rigid body, you do not consider internal energy. Why? Because that is something which is molecular forces and all that. You just consider everything into kinetic and potential energy. And then just look at the second part, that Q dot is there by what? That is the interaction of what? Air with the resistor, right? And then what about that W dot? Come on, work interaction.
So that is that potential
Change in potential energy.
No, I am talking about that work interaction only of the system with the surrounding. No, what about that atmosphere? I mean, if the piston is lifting itself, it would be doing some kind of work on the atmosphere. Right? So, I am just giving you few hints. I mean, that's how you need to translate this information into a mathematical relationship. And these are the unknown terms. That's how you identify those unknown terms. I have given you few hints. I have solved that. The solution is given in your book. My point is just to explain that. Okay. So please go back and do those two things. One thing, just solve this second part, just solve it numerically. I have given you hints about it. How do you disregard few of the terms? How do you solve it? That's the first equation I talked about. And then the second point is, you need to look at the unit conversion. If you have any question, we will talk about that. Okay, but just give me your effort first. Right?
So how can we find potential energy in that case? So no
In what case? In what case? In case B? You tell me, how do you describe potential energy?
change in height into energy.
Change in height into mg. And then if what is change in height? Obviously that change in height is due to what? Change in volume. So if you have that area, you can at least find out that change in height.
So in order to find out the work, we have to integrate pressure and volume.
You have to integrate what? Pressure into volume. And that is something which was done by I'm sorry, you are talking about that work?
Yes, sir. So how do you find out the work done on the surrounding body?
We just see that this piston is moving upward. So it is applying some kind of force on the surrounding atmosphere. Okay, just try to, by the way, the gas pressure exerted on this piston, on this piston by the gas, it is what? It is an internal force. So would you consider that? Not at all. Okay. Anything else? There would be some weight of the piston. No, weight is something which is external force. Weight is something which is external force.
Even if the system,
Sorry?
piston is included in the system.
If the piston is? Yes, even if it is included in the system. I think the chapter is over. No, not over yet. I have one topic left with me, and that is about the cycles. We will talk about that in the next lecture, inshallah. Okay. Please go back and read that stuff from the book. Thank you.